Paul Greek,
Here.
Sherry Keithley.
Here. We have a quorum. At this time, would the board members, advise me if you need time to review the minutes of the June 11th meeting?
This is Eric Kenyard. I've read them. I'm okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Eric Kenyard.
Okay.
Yes. Paul Greek,
Yes.
Sherry Keithley.
Yes. The minutes of the June 11th meeting are approved. The first order of business this evening is JBOA 20-432, a request by Travis Small for a variance to allow a pool in the side yard. General location is 118 East 129th Place South. Ms. Hinton, would you please give the staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a request for a variance to allow for a pool in the side yard, and I would like to speak to Mr. Small and to Mr. Ward. We have 3 members of the board present tonight, and variances and special exceptions from the Board of Adjustment require a vote of 3 for approval. So in order for your item to be approved, you will have to have an affirmative action from all 3. An affirmative vote for approval. So basically, Mr. Small, I believe, had made application to build a pool in his side yard. He had spoken with the pool company, and had submitted a building permit when our inspections department said, hey, our code doesn't allow this, and this is the reason why. So swimming pools, let's see, you can see the drawing here that Brandon's pulled up. If you look at page 3 of 21, it just tells you that this is lot 23, block 29 of Birmingham at Yorktown, blocks 23 through 30. If you turn to page 4, I'll show you in the code, it says in section 240, talking about yards, it's 240.1 G, actually it's 240.2 G, and it says swimming pools shall be located in the rear yard and shall have a minimum setback of 10 feet from any side or rear yard or rear lot lines. If you look at in the code, also as I've shown on page 4, section 420, table 2 shows that a swimming pool is allowed as a permitted accessory use in a residential district. If you turn to page 5, it starts and kind of explains what the powers of the Board of Adjustment are. And I know that you are all experienced, but I'm going to go over this for the sake of the applicant, and if there are any public viewing that they also would understand. So in section 16-5-3, it says variances to authorize upon appeal in specific cases such variances from the terms of this article as will not be contrary to the public interest, where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this article will, in any individual case, result in unnecessary hardship, so that the spirit of this article shall be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. So those are kind of the conditions in which consideration must be made for a variance. And then it says such conditions may be granted in such individual cases of unnecessary hardship upon a finding by the Board of Adjustment, and we have A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property in question because of its size, shape, or topography. B, the application of this article to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship. C, such conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. And D, relief, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of the ordinance or the comprehensive plan. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go back to page 5, if you're following along in the agenda. And it says, are there any extraordinary or exceptional conditions? And in this case, this lot is extraordinary. It has 5 sides instead of 4, which is a more traditional lot. As you can see, what would be considered the rear yard, which is anything beyond the back wall of the house. So that portion is kind of a V shape, and which causes the rear yard to be more of a pie shape. There's a 11-foot utility easement along the back, which, as you can see, I'll just say for the sake of argument, the north corner of the house, which is adjacent in the rear, that may not have made it clear at all, but anyway, is very close to that utility easement. So when you talk about topography, this lot has a very dramatic slope towards that utility easement, which is also causing it to be extraordinary and exceptional condition in the rear yard. If you go to item B, which the application of this article is particular to this piece of property, staff has looked at it and does agree that designing and building a pool in the rear yard as defined by the Jinx Code would create an unnecessary hardship. The natural drainage of the lot would be disrupted, and I would say that the water from the adjacent lots is allowed to come across there, and that would also be disturbed if the rear yard was completely covered by a pool, or even partially covered by a pool. And the impact to the neighbors could be greater if the pool was built in the defined rear yard rather than the side yard. Item C, such conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. And I would answer that yes, this is particular or peculiar to this particular property. The property shape, as we said, is at the end of a cul-de-sac. It is, you can see here on this picture that Brandon's pulled up that they're kind of right there, not the hard corner, but they're right there at the corner, and you can see that unusual shape of their lot, and that with the lot really sloping towards that utility easement in the rear yard, it is certainly a peculiar and particular situation for this lot. If relief is granted, would it cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes or intent of the ordinance? And staff has looked at it in depth. We do not believe that it would cause any issues. The homeowner has a screening fence that is 6.5 feet tall that encloses the side yard in a way that promotes safety, and the yard will receive an additional landscaping when the pool is installed. And I would note these lots are very large, and when I looked on Google Earth from the edge of pool to the neighbor's property would be about 40 feet. So from the water's edge to the neighbor's actual house, let me rephrase that. From water's edge to the neighbor's house is about 40 feet, and in most cases that's more than half the size of most lots. So with that being said, if you look at page 7, I really just included some more excerpts from the code. At this particular time, we've looked at it. Staff has looked at the pool plans, and we have no objections and no conditions for approval. Staff has agreed and asked that the Board of Adjustment consider and grant a variance to allow for a pool in the side yard. I can answer questions, and the applicant is also present online if you have any questions.
Mr. Small, is there anything that you would like to say to the board in addition to what's in the agenda?
No, she pretty much covered everything. The only thing that we didn't mention is that directly behind our house in the rear yard, we did build a large play set that we would have to move if we tried to place a pool there. And with the location of our house on the cul-de-sac, the closest cross street is basically a block away. So where we would put the pool is the furthest away from the closest cross street. If it's an issue of privacy or safety being further away from public access, it would be the furthest place from that. But other than that, she pretty much covered everything.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Do any other board members have questions for Mr. Small? Are we good?
We're good.
I'm good.
Okay. Is there anyone present to speak on behalf or against the case before the board?
Sherry, there is no public present to speak on either case.
Okay. And no one has any additional questions? Is there anything that we would like to discuss?
This is Eric Enyard. I did notice in the staff report that they point out there's a 6.5-foot tall privacy fence, which is important for screening a pool. I want to thank staff. I can tell you put a lot of time and effort into researching the property and the irregularities thereof. This is quite a unique tract. If you look at the definition of rear yard, it's the intended definition of rear yard under the Jenks zoning code is the one that's most distant from and most nearly parallel to the front lot line. I would be hard pressed to figure out which one of the several lot lines is in fact the rear yard. The rear yard, in fact, does look like a V. And based on all these unique circumstances, I believe that I concur with staff that this does meet the test and standards for granting variance under state statutes and the Jenks zoning code.
Would you care to make a motion?
I move to approve this application per the recommendation of staff.
Second.
Eric Enyard,
Yes.
Paul Greek,
Yes.
Jared Heaton.
Yes. The motion has been approved. Mr. Small, if you might get with Ms. Hinton if there's anything else that you need from her or she needs from you.
All right, sounds good.
And enjoy your pool.
Will a letter be sent to me that I have to present to anyone else, or how does that work out going here?
Mr. Small, staff will send you a letter via email. If you need a hard copy, let us know, but you'll get that letter. We can probably get it out tomorrow, and you should be able to present it. I'll send it also to the building inspection department so that they know that you have been approved and you can continue work.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. One moment. Moving on, we are now going to address JBOA 20-433, a request by Robert Ward for a variance to allow a pool in the side yard. General location, 605 East 119th Street South.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This case is also a request for a variance to allow for a pool in the side yard. And if you weren't with us when we first started the Board of Adjustment meeting, or just before we started the meeting, I said this is the year of the pool. I think staff receives about one request a week, maybe one every 2 weeks. And in many cases, there are severe encumbrances that just do not allow for a pool, even in the side yard. But in this case, it looks like there may be an option, and staff agrees that it can meet the requirements. So we'll go through that. If you look at page 12 of 21, this lot is located in the Slate Creek subdivision. The applicant, again, was in the process of seeking a building permit, and building inspections let them know that they could not proceed in the side yard without a variance from the Board of Adjustment. The zoning is RE, which does allow, per the code, for a little more flexibility in the location of a pool. If you look on page 13 of 21, there's a zoning map that kind of shows the location of this parcel, and this parcel is over half an acre. It's lot 11, block 1. And the zoning code says in section 240.1 or 0.2, when it's talking about permitted yard obstructions, it says in G, swimming pools shall be located in the rear yard and shall have a minimum setback of 10 feet from any side or rear lot lines. However, the Board of Adjustment may, upon application and after public hearing, permit the aforementioned accessory uses in the front yards of properties zoned RE, which is residential estates. And that is the zoning for this particular lot. If you turn to the next page, on page 14, just a little chart that shows you on table 2 that swimming pools are an accessory use which is permitted in residential districts, but that does require fitting in the space, and generally that is a rear yard. I think when you think about the fact that this is over half an acre and code would allow it to even be in the front yard, I certainly understand how consideration in the side yard would be acceptable. So if you look at section 16-5-3, when it talks about the powers of the zoning board, I'm just going to go through it really quickly like I did previously. The things to consider, it says this article, if you approve this, will not be contrary to the public interest where, owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this article will, in any individual case, result in unnecessary hardship, so that the spirit of this article shall be observed, consideration of public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. And again, there are 4 questions in our code, and these are based on state statute that have to be answered. And the first question is statement, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property in question because of its size, shape, or topography. And in this case, it is quite extreme and extraordinary, not exactly particular to this lot, but to this development. And in this case, there is a 130-foot PSO utility easement. This easement, I did contact PSO, had a conversation with them. This easement cannot be, not that I expected it to be. They have a transmission line, but just to confirm, it cannot be encroached, it could not be moved, vacated, or closed. So that would create a hardship and would only allow them to have a pool in the front yard or in the side yard. So item B says the application of this article to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship. And I believe the answer to that is yes. Item C, such conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. I answered yes, the conditions are peculiar to this particular plat involved. We have the easement encumbers this property and several other adjacent properties to this one. But in this case, we are only talking about this particular property. There are no other properties asking for a pool at this time. Item D, relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of the ordinance. In this case, relief would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purpose and intent of the ordinance or comp plan. And the applicant, Mr. Ward, the Ward family has contacted their HOA, which is required per their subdivision regulations. And the HOA has sent the letter and it has been included in for your review. And they have reviewed the pool request and are in favor and support of that pool request. If you go to page 17. I kind of highlighted here on the plat that utility easement, and you can see it takes up over half the yard, really. It's a significant encumberment. At this point, staff has no conditions for approval, and we do ask, after reviewing it, that you grant the variance to allow for a pool in the side yard.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, is there anything else you would like to address the board about your plans?
No, appreciate you guys taking a look at it, and we had to get very creative with a huge backyard that we can't use for anything except grass. So with working with Baker Pools, they came up with a good plan that will fit well and look very nice. So I appreciate you guys taking time this evening to review this.
You're welcome. Board members, do either of you have any questions for the applicant?
Not here.
No.
Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against the application?
No, ma'am, there's no one present to speak on this case for or against it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, board members? I have been to the site, and I think you could put a waterfall in the front yard, but I don't think a pool.
Yeah, the waterfall's a good idea. I may have to figure that out.
No.
This is Eric Enyart. I live in 2 subdivisions to the west, but I do not personally know the applicant. I don't feel that I have a conflict of interest, but I did want to put that out on the table though.
I'll make a motion to approve JBOA 20-433. It certainly meets all the requirements as far as the lot size. It's in the, you've got the PSO line in the rear, and it's the size of the lot itself. So, and you got the homeowners approving it. We have nobody contacted, no public contact, City Hall or here tonight. So I make a motion we approve this.
Second.
Eric Inyard,
Brandon?
Yes.
Paul Greek,
Yes.
Jerry Keaton.
Yes. Mr. Ward, your application has been approved. You will
Wonderful.
receive either an email or a letter. If you'll advise Ms. Hinton what you need, she is the person for you to contact so you can get your pool done.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a ton.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Yes, y'all have a wonderful evening.
Well,
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I see that we have other business on our agenda, which would be an update on the Horizon Inc. comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is slowly but surely coming to closure for the update on the comprehensive plan. It's been exciting. I still haven't met the consultants in person, but we've had some great online meetings, and they will be I've sent them the final schedule. They've approved the internal schedule, and I should hear by tomorrow, and I believe they will approve the final schedule. So we're looking at adoption, the second meeting by City Council in August. I think that's the 23rd. And let me look that up. My plan is to schedule a special hearing with the Planning Commission on the Monday night beforehand. and let them, they're also gonna be, that when they come into town, which I do expect them to, there, at least 2 consultants to be present. They said that they're feeling pretty good about traveling, but with the latest numbers in Oklahoma, they may change their mind. We don't know. But maybe they'll be here, maybe they won't. But regardless, they have already started working on the Unified Development Ordinance, and they'll be kicking that off publicly the week that they come into town for the final hearing and adoption of the comprehensive plan. So looking forward to it, excited about it. It's got some really good direction for the city. The community really came together. We're going through, the staff has revised it and looked at it, and it's under review by the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the committee, the Citizen Advisory Committee. And once everybody we've scheduled meetings with those groups of people and got a lot of good feedback. So it's winding up. And we should be heading straight into the Unified Development Code, and then they also will work on the subdivision regulations. So with you all being very experienced with things going on in the city of Jinx, if you have any comments or things that you've noticed in the code, especially as we move into the UDO process, if you have code issues that you would like to see changed, or they're going to scrap everything and start over, so there won't be a lot of change in that sense. But if there's things that you know didn't work well in the past, it'd be good to let us know. Did I confuse you, Eric?
A little bit. I heard Unified Development Ordinance. I also heard subregs.
Yes, they're going to do both.
If I can help in any way, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have started to enjoy the construction at 111th in Elwood.
I think that's sarcasm.
But it's so far so good.
Good.
I'm glad it's going to happen. I hope everything runs smoothly.
Hope they complete that before the county does 121st and 75.
Yeah, it'd be
Right.
nice.
They have to. From what I gleaned at the meeting back in January, was it? There in Glenpool, they had to do this first. So,
Knock on wood.
Yeah, well, it's closed, their streets are closed, so, and congratulations on the, Melody Lane, Center. Is that what it's being called?
Yeah.
I wonder, any question because of the brewery and that church so close?
Yeah.
Are y'all basing your conversation on a recent news report?
No,
Yes, there was something that said there was gonna be a brewery there.
Okay. That is,
that's what one of the tenants told me. He said he's gonna have, the gym, he said he's gonna have a brewery next to him. And I'm thinking, well, there's a church there. I thought there was some kind of code for that.
well, it boils down to the ABLE Commission, and I've heard a couple of different varieties of options, and it looks like they're gonna work it all out, and I will not interfere.
But
Well-
Red Dog did an excellent job as far as landscaping, the physical.
Oh, it looks wonderful.
Yes, it does. I drove through there yesterday and got out and walked around a little bit and looked at it. So it should be exciting. They have to go through the PUD process in order to get the brewery/restaurant in there. Not the restaurant. If it was just a straight restaurant, they wouldn't. But and then they want an outdoor venue area. So very exciting.
Well, as long as it brings in tax dollars, I'm all for it. Does anyone have anything else to discuss this evening?
Not here.
I'm good.
Thank you, because I couldn't hear you shake your head. Sound like your teacher, don't I? But I just wanted to say, gentlemen and chief staff members, thank y'all for all the work you do and getting us all together and making allowances for those that are technically behind. And I wish you all a good night, and we are adjourned at 6:30 p.m.